Welcome to the Self-Reliant Living Show, where we talk all about a self-reliant lifestyle to save money, live greener, eat healthier, and be prepared for anything so you can take care of the ones you love in good times and bad. I'm your host, Jennifer Osuch, a homeschooling mom of 3 boys. I'm the author of the Preparedness Planner series, and my husband and I are the lead teachers of Self-Reliant School, a website dedicated to giving you the skills and confidence to take care of yourself and your community. Be sure to stop by and pick up your free videos from inside Self-Reliant School that will get you started growing, cooking, and preserving your own food today. You can pick these up at selfreliantschool.com/free. Now, on with the show. Hi, and welcome to the Self-Reliant Living Show. I am so happy that you've joined us today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of different canners. So if you're just joining us, come on in. Please leave me a comment. If you are on Facebook, go ahead and tell me what kind of foods that you can, your favorite foods to can. And then also, if you're not a canner yet, then tell me some foods that you would like to can. And when you become a canner, which will hopefully be really soon. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a couple of housekeeping things here, and then we will get to the content of our show. The first thing is, if you are watching on Facebook Live, I would really appreciate it if you shared the show. That just helps us get into the feeds of people who are like-minded and who would really benefit from this information. Then if you are watching the replay, welcome to you. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you are watching on the show note page, you can also go ahead and comment and participate as well. Just down there on the blog, leave me a comment, ask questions, and that would be just fine as well. You can also go ahead and download this show as a podcast on iTunes. If you just want to listen in your earbuds, then you can totally download this on iTunes as a podcast and listen on the go. So we have all kinds of different ways to watch. We're also on Periscope, so if you are somebody who prefers to watch on Periscope, then we're there as well. And the replay should be on Facebook and Periscope as well. If you would like to go to the show notes for this particular show, go to selfreliantlife.tv/044. Okay, so let me just make a quick introduction here. If I'm just showing up in your feed and you're wondering who the heck is this person, my name is Jennifer Osuch, and I am the author of the Preparedness Planner series. My husband and I teach gardening, cooking, and preserving skills at selfreliantschool.com through our membership and our blog. And I am also the host of this show, the Self-Reliant Living Show. Okay, so I'm going to hop on over here to Facebook and make sure I can see everyone. Hi, Laura. Laura, tell me what kind of food that you like to can. And hi, Millicent. Tell me what foods you like to can. Okay, so we are going to just hop on over to my notes here, and we're going to start talking about some different canners. I have some here. You probably have noticed them. Okay, so here's the thing. I get a ton of questions every year. It's almost canning season, so it's that time of year, and I get a ton of questions about what kind of canner should you buy if you're in the market for one. And then also I get a lot of questions about different kinds of foods and how to can them. And then that leads to the question of, well, what kind of canner do you have? So I get a lot of questions about this. And let me just say really quick that I did a show on canning basics. That is the kinds of food that you can, the kinds that you can't, the benefits of canning, all of those kinds of things were talked about. And you could go to selfreliantlife.tv/002 for that show. And so I would encourage you, if you're brand new to canning and you have not ever heard any of that kind of information, I would definitely encourage you to go and listen to that show after this show. But because we'll review a little bit, but that is a really good background show that, or it has background information that you really ought to know before you even go and shop for a canner. Okay, so that being said, so we're not going to spend too much time on the different kinds of foods that you can and what you can't can. All of those, like I said, were covered in that show. But for review, really quick, let's go over the two different kinds of canning methods. So the first one is water bath canning. And you may have heard of that term before. That is generally what people think of when they think of canning, is a big pot on the stove with water, and you submerge your jars in that pot, and then you boil the water. And that's putting your food, your jars, in a water bath, and then that is going to preserve the food. And like I said, that's normally what is thought, people think about when they think about canning. So that is one method. And the thing is that the boiling kills mold, yeast, and some bacteria. And that kind of canning is suitable for high acid foods. So foods like fruit, things that are pickled that have vinegar in them, those kinds of foods are fine for water bath canning. And you can do that, and it's a pretty easy method. We're going to talk about the methods when we talk about the canners in just a minute. But I want to just make sure we're on the same page in terms of the different canning methods first. Okay, so then there is another canning method that uses pressure, and this is called pressure canning, and it uses a different kind of canner. Like I said, we're going to get to this in just a minute, but the idea is that it raises the temperature high enough to kill the spore that causes botulism, and that kind of canning is suitable for low acid foods, which is most vegetables and meat. Okay, so one thing I want to note here, because we're going to talk about pressure canners. It is not okay to pressure can in a pressure cooker. Okay, so let me say that one more time. It is not okay to pressure can in a pressure cooker. So we are going to talk about pressure canning, and like I said, you must have a device, an appliance that is a canner in order to pressure can. Okay. So let me just say one thing here, and that is, let's get into the water bath canning, and then we'll talk about temperature. Okay, so there are two common kinds, I guess, of water bath canners, and here's one, and here's the other. You've probably seen this canner, even if you don't have one, but you've probably seen it in a store when you were walking by the mason jars or something like that. You've probably seen a canner just like this one. Okay, so the thing is that this is a granite ware canner, and it's relatively inexpensive. And like I said, you've probably seen this before. It's relatively inexpensive. They come in different sizes. This one is one of the bigger ones that you can get. And it's lightweight. You can hold it with one hand, not a problem there. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is for a water bath canner, like I said, you would go ahead and fill this up. You would put your jars in, and this one happens to come with a rack here. Okay, so you're going to put your jars in, and then you're going to fill this with water. So you're going to boil the water, and it's going to get up to 212 degrees at sea level. That's the temperature of boiling water. And then depending on your recipe, depending on the food that you have in there, you're going to keep it at boiling for a certain amount of time. So, and that's what is going to preserve the food. It's going to cause a vacuum inside of the mason jars, and then your food will be sealed, and there will be no problems because the food will have enough acid to not let the spore that causes botulism flourish. So you're good to go with this. So I just wanted to explain, like I said, with the canner, the method. Okay, so like I said, this one is pretty reasonably priced. It's pretty lightweight, and it's pretty durable in the sense that, it does the job, it works. It is not, it is pretty thin metal, so it's not probably going to last forever in terms of dents and things like that. But if you're a beginning canner, this is a great canner to start with. The only thing I would mention is that sometimes there will be scratches. You'll get scratches or whatever, and then rust might set in. And same thing with the rack. You might, over time, get a rusty rack. You know, like I said, it's a great beginning canner. So if you're somebody who has never canned before, this is probably the one that you want to start with. And you would want to start with water bath canning recipes. Okay, so having said that, you don't have to actually go out and buy a pot just to water bath can. Because if you've never done it before, but maybe you have a large pot in your kitchen, you can water bath can with that large pot. The only thing you need to make sure of is that your jars can be submerged, and an inch to an inch and a half of water can be, on top of them, or they can be submerged that far under that there would be an inch to an inch and a half water on top. And that's all you need. You really don't need a specialized pot to do that. The only thing I would tell you, if you were going to maybe do an experiment, maybe try it for the first time, something like that, is that you definitely want to keep your jars off the bottom of the canner. So what you would do is you can buy a rack like this one. You would have to measure your pot and all of that sort of thing. If you don't want to do that, like I said, you're just trying it out maybe for the first time, is just get a towel and put it on the bottom. Fold up a towel and put it on the bottom so that your jars don't touch the bottom. And then fill up your can or your pot, and then go ahead and follow the recipe, and you should be just fine. Now, the reason that people go ahead and purchase canners is because, well, it's designed for mason jars. So you can plan out your canning because this one will hold 7-quart jars, right? So that's awesome, and you know that they'll fit. And so you can plan out how much you're going to can and all of that. So eventually you'll probably want to get a pot that is designed just for holding mason jars. But in order to start, you don't need that. If you have a big pot, you're good to go right there. But then, like I said, this one is great because I don't have a problem taking it outside or anything like that. And if it does get dented, then it's fine, because it's, like I said, it wasn't that expensive, and it's a great starter canner. Okay, so as far as water bath canners, let me go ahead and show you this one. Now this one is a canner. It was designed to hold mason jars, but I can also use it for a ton of other things. I make applesauce in here, I make soups in here. This one also comes with a rack, and it's stainless steel. So I don't have the rust problems that I have with this one. And you don't have them if you will take care of this one and dry this one off, and just really baby it. It will last for a good long time, but eventually, you get what you pay for, right? And it's probably gonna have a little bit of rust. But this one, I don't have any problem. It's really sturdy, and I can use it for other things. But again, it's just a large pot. It's designed, like I said, to hold mason jars. So if you have a pot already, don't feel like you have to go out and spend a ton of money. And it's pretty simple. Like I said, they're both basically just pots with racks. So no big deal. It's just depending on how much you can would be, what kind of pot you'd want to invest in. So I love this one. This one has a gauge on the top. I honestly don't use it that much. I probably would if I lived at a higher altitude. So if you do live at a higher altitude, you might want to check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes, and you can definitely look at that and see if that's something that you would use. Okay, so let me go ahead and do some switching here, because we're fixing to talk about pressure canners. And I didn't want to put all of these up here because then I couldn't move. Okay, so I'm going to check on Facebook and see if there's questions and comments. Okay, hi Joyce. Hi Constance. I'm so glad you're here. Hi Tammy. Yes, for the budget conscious, yes. Okay, we have lots of people coming on. Hi, Nancy. Nancy's new to canning, so I'm thrilled that you are here. She says she needs all the help she can get. Well, you're in the right place, so welcome. Okay, so let me go back over the temperature here, because that's really what I wanted to get to. I sort of got ahead of myself there. In terms of how a pressure canner works. So remember, I said that water boils at 212 degrees at sea level. Okay, so, and that's just fine, like I said, for a water bath canner, and that's fine to get the water up to boiling, right? Because even if you live at a higher altitude, you get the water up to boiling, and that is going to be sufficient in terms of preserving high acid foods. Okay, so when you have low acid foods, there is a spore that causes botulism. And botulism is a really, really nasty, yucky thing to have ingest. It causes terrible food poisoning. And some people have actually died from it before. There haven't been any really recent cases of that. There have been recent cases of botulism poisoning, but with modern medicine, they're able to recover. But it is a long recovery process. So this is not something that you ever want to deal with. It's not something to be taken lightly or anything like that. You just want to make sure that there's no environment for that spore to thrive. And so to do that, you need to pressure can low acid foods. And low acid foods, like I mentioned before, are vegetables and meats. And if you really need to go ahead and figure out exactly what foods are low acids and not, you can go and listen to the podcast or the show that I gave you the link to earlier. Or you can look at your recipe, because your recipe is going to tell you whether to pressure can or water bath can. So that's the first place that you would look. After a while, you'll get to know the different foods and what process they need, what canning method they need. But really, especially when you are dealing with a pressure canner, you want to follow a proven recipe. You want to do that with all of your canning so that you can keep everybody who enjoys your wonderful canned food safe. Okay, so having said that, the way that a pressure canner works, the spore that causes botulism is killed at a temperature of 240 degrees. Well, you can see the problem, right? Because water boiling is not enough. You need to raise the temperature even more than the 212. So how that is achieved is through pressure. So the temperature inside with the pressure and the steam raise the temperature of the food to the 240 degree mark, which will kill the spore that causes botulism, and you don't have to worry about that at all, which is, like I said, a really good thing. So that's why you really, really need to use a pressure canner when the recipe calls for it. If you're unsure, if you just say want to take some green beans that you got out of the garden, then you're going to need to look up the recommended method of canning for that particular vegetable, which green beans would be pressure canning. Okay, so having said all of that, let's move on and let me show you the difference here between the different pressure canners. I'm going to look really quick on here and make sure I'm not missing any questions and or comments. So go ahead and leave me a comment, Patty. Oh, Patty says, your canning course is wonderful and you really give out a ton of information and knowledge. Oh, thank you so much, Patty. That's wonderful to hear. Okay, so if you are just joining us, go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me what your favorite thing is to can. And if you're not a canner yet, tell me some of the foods that you hope to can when you become a canner, which hopefully is really, really soon. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to pressure canners. Okay, I'm just making sure that I did not miss anything any information to take. I'm looking at my notes here. Miss any information that I wanted to tell you. Okay. Right. Okay. So we're moving on to pressure canners. Now, I want to say that if you have to make a choice between a water bath canner and a pressure canner, you might want to decide to get a pressure canner because you can pressure can most things that you would put in a water bath canner. You would just do it at a shorter amount of time, and the directions that come, I know with the Presto and the All-American, give you the exact times for that. So things that are high acid like applesauce or peaches or things like that, you can do in a pressure canner. Okay, so having said that, maybe there's some things that you don't want to pressure can because pressure canning, it's pretty intense, right? Maybe there's pickles that you might want to put in a water bath canner. You can use your pressure canner as a water bath canner, right? Because remember, I said it's just a pot that you boil water in. So you would put water in here, you'd put your jars in here, and then you just wouldn't seal it to bring the pressure up. You could just use it as a water bath canner. Now, having said that, I want to mention that these are a little bit heavier than a water bath canner, and this one definitely is. So that is provided that your stove is heavy duty enough to take the weight of the canner plus the water, because and the food, obviously, right? So because in pressure canning you don't fill it up with water, so that's something that you need to think about when you are deciding which kind of canner. But I would encourage you, like I said, if you have a good heavy duty stove, a gas stove, that's what I have, to really go ahead and support the weight, that if you're just going to get one canner, a pressure canner can also double as a water bath canner. So that's something I want to mention in terms of being economical with finances, and then also with space, because they're pretty, pretty big, and so they're going to take up some real estate in your kitchen. Okay, so having said that, let's move on to the two different kinds of canners that I want to go over today, which are the Presto and the All-American. Okay, so here we go. This is a Presto canner, and it comes with a dial gauge. And the thing is that that is pretty much how you're going to regulate the temperature, is with the dial gauge, not with a weighted gauge. So let me give some explanation about that. When you pressure can, you will have in your recipe, you will have a certain amount of pressure that needs to be applied depending on the food, depending on the altitude of where you are. And you would need to educate yourself as to your altitude where you live so that you could follow a recipe exactly. So there is a little bit of a learning curve there, and I don't really call it a learning curve, I call it more of a information gathering situation, right? So you're going to have to do a little bit of research and make sure you understand that for the area that you live in. In any case, your recipe is going to tell you what pressure, how many pounds of pressure that you're going to need for whatever recipe that you are canning. And in this particular model, you rely on this gauge. So it's going to tell you, this little dial is going to go to 10. If it's 10 pounds of pressure that you need, you're going to adjust the heat until it gets to 10. Now, to do that, it comes with this regulator. So you would put this here, and you would, like I said, you would follow certain procedures first, but I'm just telling you exactly the difference between the pressure canners. So if somebody says in the comments, oh, you forgot to talk about exhausting, there is some procedures that you need to go through when you pressure can. But here I just really want to talk about the differences in these canners. Okay, so having said that, when you are trying to raise the temperature, what you're going to do is you're going to put this regulator on, and it's only one weight. There's no way to make it a different weight, and you'll understand what I mean in a minute. In any case, what you do is you put this as is with your food inside on the burner, and then you're going to adjust the heat until, say, we're trying to can at 10 pounds pressure until this gauge gets to 10. And so what will happen is that there's a little, see if I have a second camera here, I can take this off and show you. But there is a little indicator here, and it will show you that the pot is up to pressure. Let me see if I can, see I can get it to go up. Yeah, see that going up and down? You've probably seen these on pressure cookers, but this is a pressure canner, and it has a pressure indicator as well. Okay, so you'll see that go up, and then you will adjust the heat until it gets to 10, because that's what we're trying to, for our simulation here, that is what we are canning at. Okay, so that's what you rely on for this particular model, is the dial. Okay, so the thing is that the dial has to be checked every year. So you have to figure out a place that can check that for you and make sure that it's accurate. So that's kind of a drawback to this. The other things I want to tell you about this particular model, the Prestos, this is the bigger one. They come in, I think, 2 sizes, and you can get both sizes with a dial gauge only, and then there is a smaller model that does come with a regulator. I'll get to that in just a second, but let me go ahead and show you what comes with this. This is a lighter pot than this. We'll get to this in a minute. And it does come with a rack. So here's the rack. So some of the things that are great about this is that it's lightweight, like I had mentioned before, and that's a good thing, especially if you're going to try and can on a glass top stove. You can with this Presto model on some gas top stoves. So you have to read the directions and your manufacturer recommendations for your stove. So I don't want to tell you just to go and put a pressure canner on your stove. That's not what I'm saying, but it is approved with some of them. So if that's something that you have already and you have to accommodate your glass top stove, then you may want to look into a Presto. Okay, so some of the things that I like on here, like I said, the lightweight and the fact that it has a pressure indicator. I showed you that. Let me show you one more time. This. Trying to see our second camera here if it's working good. So I like that. Okay, some of the things I don't like about it is that sometimes when you are taking the top off, the pressure is down, everything is good, right? So when you're taking it off, you have to twist it like this, but my hand comes up here and the steam comes out, so you can get burned easier. So you definitely want to wear some kind of oven mitts or something like that. The other different thing about this is, let me see if I can show you, is that this canner has a gasket. You can see it here. So let me take a little bit out so you can see it. See this rubber gasket here? And that is what makes the canner airtight, where it can come up to pressure. So this gasket has to be replaced as well. So the two things that are kind of a bummer on here is that you have to have the dial gauge checked. Then you have to replace the gasket. So there's that. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you the All-American, and then we're going to come back to this in just a second. And I'm going to put it upside down for a second, like this, and put it over here because I want to show you this one. Okay, and this one's heavy, so I couldn't put it down here and then lift it back up, because then I'm playing musical canners here. Okay, so this one is an All-American, and All-American canners are something that are going to last a lifetime, and probably your children's lifetime, because they are just thick stainless steel. They're going to be something that would be really hard to dent or nick or anything like that. So it's something that you can rely on for a long time. Like I said, probably longer than your lifetime. Okay, so some of the differences, now just to be fair, these are different sized, let me bring this back over here. They are different sized canners, but this is the largest one that Presto comes in. So if you're interested in really putting away some jars and you really want to go to town in terms of pressure canning, you may want to look into something that does come in a bigger size. There is actually one that's even bigger than this one. So just to say that. Some of the differences here, obviously the first one that I noticed and I like is the handle. It's up here, and when I take this off, I'm not going to get burned. So I'm going to take it off like this, and I don't get burned because I've got my hand up here. Okay, so another thing that you probably have already noticed is there's no gasket. Let's see if you can see. There's no gasket. It's metal on metal. So you don't have to replace the gasket. So that's one thing that's awesome. You don't have to get parts every now and again. Okay, so here is another different thing. Now this does have a gauge, but it is just for reference. What you're going to use is this weighted gauge here. And let me put it down here so you can actually get a really good look at this. Because you can see on here, you can see a 5, a 15, and a 10. I don't know if you can actually see the numbers, but they're there on there. And so this is the gauge, and what you're going to do, so if I want to can at, remember our 10 pounds pressure, I would put 10 at the bottom, and I'd put it just right on there like that. And that's all I would do. I would go ahead and close it up. And obviously, again, the closures, they're pretty heavy duty. I would close it up, and I would put it over the heat, and then I would wait. I would look at my dial, and then I would also make sure that this is jiggling. It's 1 to 4 times per minute. And then I would just, make sure after a while, after you do it for a long time, it's gonna be like rhythm. You're gonna get into the rhythm, and you're just gonna know automatically. But if you're beginning, you could just take like a little stopwatch and make sure that it is jiggling 1 to 4 times a minute. And it's not a hard thing to achieve. And you just go ahead and adjust the temperature until it gets to that little jiggle just a couple of times a minute. So the thing is that these regulators are very accurate and very reliable. It's hard to break this, right? It's hard for this to actually, not work. Whereas a dial, that's a little, that's why you have to have it checked, right? So, okay, so here we go with the regulator, which is something I really like about this model. Now, the bad thing about this is that it is heavy duty and it's expensive. It's an investment. So it's something that you have to really be into canning, really have things to can every year, and make it worth your while. Because it would be, it's not like, it's not a small fortune, but like I said, it is an investment. So you would definitely want to be sure that this was something that you wanted and needed, and that you could store as well. Because like I said, it's kind of big there. Okay, so let me go ahead and tell you that this is the 30-quart All-American, and just making sure that I did not miss any really good things about it. Oh, yes, I did. The racks. This one comes with 2 racks. Let me get those out so you can see them. Take this off so I don't drop it. Okay, so here's the 2 racks. Here's 1, and here is 2. And what these do, of course, you're going to have your cans up off the bottom of the pot, just like you would in water bath canning. Then you can stack. you can stack your jars. So this will actually hold 14 quart jars. So you would put your 7 in, and then you'd put this rack down, and then you would put 7 more. So that's pretty awesome to do 14 at one time. And this will also do, let's see, 19 quarts. Okay, so it also, I'm sorry, not 19 quarts. I said that wrong. It will do 14 quarts. No, it will do 14 quarts and 19 pints. Got to get those numbers right. Okay, so it'll do quite a bit, right? All right, so that's one of the things. The other thing I wanted to show you on both of these models have this, so I can just show you on this one that's already up. This is it's a safety feature. It's called an overpressure plug. I wanted to call the name right. It's an overpressure plug here. Can you see that? And so what happens is, this is a safety feature, whoops, and both of these canners have it. So I'm just going to show you on this Presto. So what happens is, let me get it right in the middle there. What happens is, if there is something that causes the pressure to build up and not be released, if your valve is clogged, then it's going to push this out, and all of the steam will come out this way. I think I made it go on the floor, but that's okay. Anyway, so this is a safety feature, and both of these lids have them. So those stories that you hear about pressure canners exploding and all of that stuff is a thing of the past, because these both have this safety feature, and that prevents the explosions from happening. Okay, so let's see. We talked about the safety features, and we talked about the pros and cons. This guy is, like I said, it's heavy duty, and it's going to last several lifetimes. It has the safety feature of the overpressure plug. It has the weighted gauge here. It all comes together like this. The only other thing I would tell you about this kind of canner is that you would need to make sure that your stove was heavy duty enough to support it. This would not go on a glass top stove. So if you have a glass top stove, then that would be a problem. And then you would probably need to go with a Presto. And then the other thing is that if you have a stove that has something on top, like if you have a cabinet above your stove top, or a microwave, or another stove maybe, you would want to make sure that there is enough space between those so that this would fit. Because I did not measure, but I got super lucky that it does fit, because I do have a microwave over my stove. So you would need to measure that for sure and make sure it fits, because that would be sad if you bought it and you got it and it wouldn't fit on your stove. So you would need to measure that. But other than that, this would be fine. And take heart though, because they do come in smaller models. This is just, like I said, it's the second to the largest one. So they do come in shorter, smaller models if you're interested in getting something, like I said, that's going to last a lifetime, and then you don't have to replace the parts on. Okay, so now that I introduced you to this weighted gauge, let me go back to the Presto, because I want to show you something that you can do with the Presto that is pretty cool. That is, because like I said, some people don't have a choice. If you, again, have a glass top stove, then you're probably stuck with a Presto. Not to saying that's a bad thing. Also, if you have limited mobility, it might be something that you need to have something that you can lift, and I totally understand that. So I'm going to show you a trick where you can have a weighted gauge on the Presto. I'm going to check and see about comments over here. And yes, the 41.5 quart is the largest one, Diane, the All-American. And I don't think that it's taller. I think it's just wider. So you check the dimensions to be super sure, but when I last look, that's what my memory tells me right now, is that they're the same height. The other one's just wider. Okay, Meredith says, sorry she's late. No problem. I'm glad you're here, Meredith. Loris, okay, so Constance is helping. Constance, I am so happy that you were there. She is a wealth of information. She's been canning for years and years, and she has lots of information to share. That's why this is my favorite time of the week. I get to talk to you guys. We get to share information. It is just, it's one of the best things ever. I'm so thrilled to be here and for you guys to be here too. Okay, so Carla says, would love to have an All-American someday. Okay, Constance has, is it a Miro? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I think it's a Miro, and I've seen and heard about them. And they still make them today. I know there's a lot of older models as well. Let's see. Okay, Carla says, okay, so yeah, you can't, Carla's suggesting that if you do have a older canner that you get maybe at a secondhand store, yard sale, if you've had one handed down, something like that, that you take it to a local agriculture extension, because they will normally have the equipment to check to make sure that it's still in tip-top shape. If you don't have one of those near you, what you could do is you could contact the manufacturer, and they may have a way to go ahead and help you with that. Okay, so let's move on, because I have something to show you here with this Presto that I think is super cool. Okay, so let me see. Let me get this right, make sure I got this right, because this is 14 jars and 19 pints. One other thing I wanted to say about this All-American is that it also, when you get the directions for it, it will tell you how to can in actual cans. Because you can, I'm saying can, right? But a tin can, you can actually buy tin cans to can in, just like commercially made food comes in a tin can, right? Well, you could actually buy those empty cans. You have to have a can sealer, which is quite expensive, but if you do a lot of canning, then that might be something that you look into. In any case, the All-American has directions for going ahead and canning tin cans as well. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, and it will hold, number 1, tin cans. It'll hold 44 of those. It'll hold number 2 tin cans, 25 of those, and number 3 tin cans, it'll hold 10 of those. Okay, so this Presto, it will only hold 7 quart jars, but it'll hold 20 pint jars. Okay, so having said that, I want to show you what you can do here. Here is, Bill picked up my overpressure plug that went in here. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this, see if I can get it back in, because you take it out. I'm gonna leave that out for a second. Okay, so here is the regulator that comes with it, the weight regulator. And this is a 15-pound weight, in case you were curious and wanted to know. But then you would rely on your gauge. And another good thing about this is that you can in odd increments, like 11 pounds of pressure, 13 pounds of pressure, things like that. This one only has 5, 10, and 15. So you would just round up. And so I don't think that's a big deal, but some people might. Just depends on your taste and all of that. Okay, so, but having said that, you can replace this with a weighted regulator. Okay, so, and let me show you how this works. I'm going to show you in the camera so you can see it. Can you see this? Okay, there we go. So how this works is you can take off these rings. Okay, so this would be 5. So just without the rings, that would be 5. And then this would be 10. Put it on like that. That would be 10. And then if you wanted the 15, you could do that. So depending on your altitude and how many pounds of pressure that you need to can at, then you could go ahead and use this. So it goes right up here. And so what happens is, it goes right up here. Let me take one off. So, right, we're doing our 10 pounds on all of them. So you take this off, and here's 10 pounds. So when it gets up to 10 pounds, you can still use your gauge. It'll still work just fine. The reason for doing this is if you can't find a way to have this checked. this is another way that you can be sure that you've got 10 pounds of pressure. So what will happen when it gets up to 10 pounds of pressure, because that's what it's got on the weights here, it'll just rock back and forth. And it sounds better than this because there's a little bit of steam and everything. But that's what's going to happen, is it's rocking back and forth, and it's just fine. And you can tell that it is at the right pressure. Now, if you want to use this, like I said, and you're canning at 11 pounds or 13 pounds or something like that, then this would not work. But like I said, since people, unfortunately, canning is becoming a lost tradition, right? So then there may not be a lot of places to get this checked. So you can definitely rely on this weighted gauge. It does not come with the Presto, but it is from Presto, because they have another model that uses this and does not have the dial gauge. But if you have this, then you've got both. So, and I like having both on the All-American, and I like having both on the Presto. It just gives me peace of mind, and I know I can definitely rely on this because this is very reliable. Okay, so let me go ahead and make sure. Yeah, I told you right that this will hold 7 quarts and 20 pints. So that's quite a bit. And then, this holds more, yes, but you're going to pay more. So there's that. Let me make sure that I told you all of the different pros and cons. Okay. I think so. I think I've gotten almost everything here. Okay, so let me just go through them again. This canner I like a lot because I can take it outside, right? And I'm not worried about it at all. This canner I love because I can use it for more than just canning. I can use it for big batches of whatever I'm doing, whether it's applesauce or soup or whatever. Oftentimes I will just want to use this as my pot, and I'll have this going as my canner, or vice versa, depending on what I've got in here. So I'm lucky enough I do have a bigger stove that will take 2 canners. It's a tight fit, but it works. So there's that. And I don't mind taking this outside. You can completely and totally water bath can outside. It is not recommended that you pressure can outside. I know some people do it, but it is not recommended by the manufacturers of either of those canners. Okay, so I love this one. Like I said, this is a Victorio, by the way, in case you're wondering. And it is, like I said, perfect for other things. And then I love this because it's lightweight, and I use it for small batches. If I have a small batch of something, I will definitely pull this out and use it. But this one, when it's canning season, this is the one that's on the stove all the time. And so this is the one that, like I said, it's going to last probably longer than me and probably longer than my boys. So, so that's kind of a rundown. Like I said, they're all great canners for depending on, what stage of your canning life that you're in. And they all work really well. So not to worry about that. Alrighty, and so I'm going to see if I have questions here.
We have a question off of Periscope.
Okay.
If they have a glass stove, but the canner is larger than the ring, the burner element, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. You just want to use your bigger element, and make sure for your glass top stove that it is okay to put a canner on there. It should be okay to put water bath canners, but I want to direct you to the manufacturer of the glass top stove, because there's a couple of different ones, and they're not all, they don't all say that it's okay to put a canner on them. So definitely check there first. If that's okay, then yeah, it's fine. My burners aren't this large either. Just put it on the largest one and it should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to look and see about some more questions, and okay. And I see Constance is in there. Constance, thank you so much. I'm just so thrilled. She's just in there answering all kinds of questions. She is somebody that is in our membership, and she is just, like I said, a wealth of information. And that leads me to my very last point, that I teach a class, an e-course in canning. So if you are interested in learning more about canning, we go all through water bath canning, we're going through pressure canning, we talk about jellies and jams, and then we're going to talk about all kinds of things that you can pressure can, meat and vegetables, all of that stuff. So if you're interested in learning more about how to can safely and with confidence, then please check that out. You can go to selfreliantschool.com/members. Membership, sorry. Bill should have that up on the screen. So look at the screen, not my voice. It is selfreliantschool.com/membership. And like I said, to take you through all of the different kinds of canning, and we go step by step. I mean, we go through all the equipment and go through all the procedures, and then there is a Facebook group where we answer all kinds of questions, and Constance is in there. So obviously that is just a very small sample of all of the wonderful people that are in that group. She is one of our shining lights. So thank you so much for watching today, Constance, and being a help to everybody. Okay, so with that being said, remember that being self-reliant isn't about you. It isn't about being selfish or anything like that. It's about taking care of yourself so you can take care of the ones that you love. Take care until we talk again. I'm so glad you could join me today. Here's what to do next. Head over to selfreliantlife.tv to pick up the show notes for this episode and to watch replays of older episodes. To go directly to the show notes for this episode, go to selfreliantlife.tv, and then without a space, type a / and then the number of today's episode. You can watch this show live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, live on Facebook or the Periscope app. Don't forget to stop by selfreliantschool.com/free to get your free Self-Reliant School videos that will help you get started living a self-reliant life. Also, if you're listening to this show as a podcast and you've liked what you've heard today, please subscribe through Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast app. If you're on a mobile device, just search for the Self-Reliant Living Show. If you're on a laptop or desktop, just go to selfreliantlife.tv/iTunes. And while you're there, please leave a review. I love to hear from you. You leaving feedback makes it easier for others that are interested in living a self-reliant life to find my podcast. Take care until we talk again.